The zenith of human interstellar exploration had ushered in both unparalleled achievements and profound revelations. By the year 2745, humanity had established colonies on over 300 planets across 12 star systems, creating flourishing civilizations that were pushing the boundaries of what was previously deemed achievable. Yet, despite all their accomplishments, nothing had truly prepared them for the discovery of the Area system, a forlorn graveyard of worlds that served as a testament to an environmental cataclysm of an unprecedented scale. Jared Macmillan, the captain of his exploratory vessel, the Wanderer's Bounty, stood at the ship's command station, his gaze fixed on the holographic projection of Eris Prime. The planet's surface appeared as an expansive canvas of endless ochre dunes and jagged mountain ranges, sculpted by millennia of relentless winds. There was no sign of water reflecting in its ancient basins, no verdant spots dotting its vast wasteland, only the remnants of a once great civilization, rising from the sand like the skeletal remains of extinct leviathans. Atmospheric analysis complete, announced the ship's AI. External temperature 48.3 degrees Celsius, humidity levels below 2%. Trace elements suggest prior terraforming activity. Jared adjusted his environmental suit settings, double-checking the water recycling mechanism. At 35 years old, he had dedicated almost half his life to the hunt for artifacts across the galaxy's desolate regions. Yet, something about Eris Prime had his nerves on edge. The ruins below were not just another forgotten settlement, they were the remains of the legendary Hydro Masters, a civilization whose hydrological ingenuity once supported countless neighboring systems. Initiate landing sequence, he commanded, guiding the ship towards a colossal structure that emerged from the dunes like a warped spire. Mark coordinates and maintain emergency protocols. The descent stirred up clouds of crimson dust, briefly obstructing the viewport. When the dust cleared, Jared found himself staring at an architectural marvel, a building that seemed to defy the laws of gravity, its surface adorned with intricate patterns that captured the light of Eris's dying sun. He secured his helmet and stepped into the airlock. Initiate environmental seal. Begin artifact scanning sequence, he instructed. The initial blast of heat struck him as he emerged onto the planet's surface. Even through his suit's protective layers, he could feel the brutal intensity of the desert. His boots sank slightly into the sand as he activated his scanner, sweeping the area for any signs of valuable relics. The detector's consistent ping led him towards the base of the spire. As he approached, the patterns on its surface became more distinct. They were not merely decorative, but rather a complex system of channels and reservoirs, now completely dried and filled with sand. Remarkable, he murmured, running his gloved hand along the wall. The entire structure was a water purification system. A movement caught his eye, so subtle that he almost dismissed it as a heat mirage. But there it was again, a shadow shifting behind a partially collapsed pillar. Jared drew his pulse pistol, more from habit than any real sense of threat. Nothing had survived here for centuries, or so he believed. The figure that emerged from the shadows stopped him in his tracks. Through the swirling dust, he saw her, tall, impossibly graceful, with skin the color of a frozen sea. Her features were sharp and refined, like a sculpture carved from sapphire. Yet her eyes carried the weight of centuries. She stumbled, barely catching herself against the pillar. Her clothing, once elaborate but now tattered, couldn't conceal her severe emaciation. When she spoke, her voice was like fragile ice cracking. "Water, please," she whispered. Jared holstered his weapon and reached for his emergency supply. "Here," he said, approaching slowly and cautiously. "Too much at once will make you sick." She grasped the water container with surprising strength, her long fingers wrapping around it as if she were holding a precious gem. But when she attempted to drink, something peculiar happened. The water seemed to pass through her throat without effect, as though her body couldn't process it. It's not enough," she gasped, frustration evident in her voice. "Our biology, we need more than simple hydration." Jared studied her more intently. "You're one of them, aren't you? A Hydro Master?" A bitter smile crossed her face. "I am a Voni, the last scion of the Aqua Dominion. Though it seems our legendary abilities have become as parched as our wells." "How did you survive all this time?" Hibernation chambers, deep beneath the surface, she replied. But the power finally failed, and she swayed dangerously, and Jared caught her arm to steady her. The moment their skin made contact, his gloved hand on her bare arm, she gasped, her eyes widening. Your energy signature, she whispered. It's different, strong, like the ancient springs. Jared felt it too, a strange tingling sensation where they touched, as if some form of energy was passing between them. What does that mean? Avani's expression shifted from desperation to calculation. It means, traveler, that you might be worth more to me than your water. The way she said it sent a shiver down Jared's spine, despite the desert heat. He had come searching for artifacts, but he had found something far more valuable, and potentially dangerous, the last living Hydro Master, and she was regarding him as if he held the key to her survival. Jared had always prided himself on making wise decisions in challenging situations, but as he stood there, holding the arm of this beautiful, desperate alien woman, he had a feeling his next decision would be either the wisest or the most foolish of his life. Tell me what you need, he said, trying to maintain a professional detachment despite their proximity, but understand that I'm not signing a blank check here. Avani's lips curved into a smile that managed to be both grateful and predatory. Oh, Jared Macmillan, she said, and he was startled at her use of his name, which he hadn't given her. What I need might be more than you're willing to give, but I suspect you'll find the price intriguing. Intriguing isn't the word I'd use for someone looking at me like their next meal, Jared said, maintaining his grip on her arm. The energy pulsing between them had intensified, creating an almost magnetic pull. Avani laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. If I wanted to devour you, dear relic hunter, you'd already be consumed. What I propose is more of an exchange. You still haven't explained what you are, Jared countered, studying the way her sapphire skin seemed to shimmer despite her weakened state, or how you knew my name. My people were telepathic empaths before we were Hydro Masters, she said, taking a step closer. Her movement was deliberately graceful, despite her exhaustion. Your surface thoughts are like ripples in a clear pool, especially when you're distracted. Jared refused to back away, though her proximity sent his pulse racing. And what exactly am I distracted by? Oh, I think you know. Her eyes traced his face through his helmet. Your curiosity is practically screaming at me. The famous Jared Macmillan, collector of lost treasures, finding something far more valuable than another trinket for your museum. You're deflecting, he said firmly. What kind of exchange were you talking about? Avani's expression grew serious. My people didn't just store water. We created it, purified it, multiplied it, through a biological process that required certain catalysts, emotional energy, life force, passion. She emphasized the last word in a way that made the temperature inside Jared's suit seem to rise. Your blood carries something we lost centuries ago. I felt it the moment you touched me. You want my blood? Jared asked skeptically. That's your proposal? I want to live, she corrected, her voice hardening, and I want my world to live again. Your blood contains elements that could reactivate my dormant abilities. The physical and emotional chemistry is compatible. Jared considered her words. The scientific part of his mind was fascinated by the possibility, but years of experience had taught him caution. And what's in it for me, besides potential exsanguination? Besides the honor of helping restore an ancient civilization? Avani's free hand moved to rest against his chest plate. Knowledge, power, secrets that your museums would kill for. She leaned closer, her breath fogging his helmet. Perhaps something more interesting than mere artifacts to keep you warm in the cold of space. You're good, Jared admitted, fighting a smile. But I've dealt with enough ancient beings to know there's always a catch. The catch, my suspicious friend, is that once we start this process, it cannot be easily stopped. The bond created is intense. Her fingers traced patterns on his chest plate that mimicked the channels in the walls around them. Are you prepared for that kind of connection, Jared Macmillan? He should have said no. Should have helped her onto his ship, taken her to the nearest station, and let someone else deal with the implications. But something in her eyes, desperation mixed with an ancient pride, made him reach for his helmet release instead. "Show me," he said, removing his helmet despite every survival instinct screaming against it. The hot air hit his face like a physical blow. "Show me exactly what you need." Avani's eyes widened at his boldness, then crinkled with approval. She raised her hand to his now exposed face, her cool fingers tracing his jaw. "Brave man," she murmured, "or foolish one. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference." "I've been called both," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady as her touch sent shocks of energy through his system. "Usually by the same people." She laughed again, but this time it was warmer, more genuine. "This will hurt," she warned, producing a small crystal blade from her robes, "but I promise to make it worth your while." "That's what all the dangerous women say," Jared replied, offering his arm. "Just try not to enjoy it too much." The blade glinted in the harsh sunlight as Avani made a precise cut on his forearm. Instead of letting the blood drip away, she pressed her own arm against his wound, their blood mingling. The effect was immediate and electric. Energy surged between them like a lightning strike. Avani gasped, her sapphire skin beginning to glow from within. Around them, the air seemed to shimmer and condense, tiny droplets of moisture appearing out of nowhere. "Impossible," Jared whispered, watching as water literally formed from the air around them. "No," Avani said, her voice thick with emotion and power. "This is what we were, what we can be again." She looked at him with eyes that now glowed like sapphires. "With your help." As the water continued to manifest around them, Jared realized he had just volunteered for something far beyond a simple rescue mission. The way Avani held onto him, the intense connection he could feel forming between them, told him this was just the beginning. "Well," he said, trying to maintain his composure despite the incredible scene unfolding around them, "I guess this means you'll be expecting a second date." Avani's answering smile was both promising and dangerous. "Oh, Jared," she said, pulling him closer, "you have no idea what you've started." The desert wind howled around them, but neither noticed, too caught up in the miracle of water forming from thin air and the growing realization that their lives had just become irrevocably intertwined. For better or worse, Jared had just committed himself to something that would either save a civilization or destroy them both. And, judging by the way Avani looked at him, she wasn't planning on letting him choose which outcome it would be. The initial surge of energy subsided, but the connection between them remained, humming like a live wire. Avani's grip on Jared's arm loosened, but she didn't let go completely. Her eyes, still glowing with renewed power, studied his face with undisguised fascination. "Your species usually avoid such intimate connections," she observed, tracing the line where their blood had mingled, "yet you barely hesitated." Jared fought to steady his breathing, acutely aware of every point of contact between them. "Let's just say I've learned that the most valuable discoveries usually come with the highest risks." "And what kind of discovery do you think you've made here?" Avani's voice carried a teasing note, despite her obvious exhaustion. "I'm still deciding," he replied, supporting her as she swayed slightly, "though I have to admit, most of my finds don't usually talk back, or flirt." She laughed, the sound stronger than before. "Perhaps your artifact simply found you unworthy of their attention, whereas you find me." She left the question hanging, aware they were both dancing around something neither was ready to name. "Useful," she said with a smirk, but her eyes betrayed a deeper interest. "For now." Jared helped her toward a fallen pillar, noting how the air around them remained noticeably more humid than before. "Your powers are returning. Thanks to you." She settled onto the makeshift seat, still maintaining contact with his arm. "Though this is merely a fraction of what we once were. The full restoration will require more." "More blood?" Jared asked, raising an eyebrow. "More everything." Her fingers traced patterns on his skin that sent shivers down his spine. "More contact, more energy, more intimacy." Jared raised an eyebrow. "Now who's being direct?" "My people don't believe in wasting time with unnecessary pretense," she said, though a faint darker blue tinge colored her cheeks, "especially when our survival is at stake. And that's all this is, survival." he gestured to their still joined arms, to the way she seemed to lean into his space naturally. Avani's expression softened slightly. Would it bother you if it was? I'm a practical man, Jared said, though something in his chest tightened at the thought, but I prefer knowing what I'm getting into. She stood suddenly, bringing them chest to chest. Even weakened, she moved with liquid grace. Then know this, Jared Macmillan, I need you. Your blood, your energy, your... She paused, eyes dropping to his lips before meeting his gaze again. Essence. But need is all I feel. The admission hung between them, charged with possibility. Jared found himself studying her features, the subtle patterns in her sapphire skin, the proud angle of her jaw, the way her eyes seemed to hold entire galaxies. You're staring, she murmured. You're worth staring at. A genuine smile curved her lips. Careful, flattery might make me think you're interested in more than just helping a dying species. Maybe I am, he reached up with his free hand, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. The contact sent another spark of energy between them, making them both catch their breath. This is dangerous, Avani warned, though she leaned into his touch. The more we connect, the stronger the bond becomes. Soon, neither of us will be able to break it. You say that like it's supposed to scare me off, Jared chuckled. Avani, I've spent my life chasing mysteries across the galaxy. Now, I've found the biggest mystery of all, and she's telling me she needs me, specifically me. You really think I'm going anywhere? You might, when you realize what you're sacrificing, she said softly. My people's needs, my needs, they can be overwhelming. Then overwhelm me. The words came out before he could think better of them, raw and honest. Avani's eyes widened, then darkened with something that looked very much like hunger. Be careful what you wish for, Relic Hunter, her hand slid up his chest, resting over his heart. I might take you up on that offer. I'm counting on it, he replied and was rewarded with another of those musical laughs that were quickly becoming addictive. You're either the bravest or the most foolish human I've ever met. Why not both? He grinned. Now, should we discuss how we're going to restore your civilization, or would you like to keep telling me how dangerous you are? Both, she matched his grin with one of her own, predatory yet playful. Though perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere less exposed. My people built chambers deep beneath the surface designed to amplify our abilities. If you're truly committed to helping me, lead the way, Jared said, gesturing toward the spire with his free arm, though I should warn you, following beautiful, dangerous women into underground chambers rarely ends well for me. Then perhaps it's time your luck changed. Avani pulled him toward the entrance, their joined arms creating a bridge between them. After all, how often does one get to help resurrect a dead world and romance its last surviving guardian? Jared added boldly. Avani's answering look was both promise and challenge. That, dear Jared, remains to be seen. Though I must admit, she paused at the entrance, drawing him close enough that their breaths mingled, you're off to an intriguing start. The descent into the underground chambers felt like entering another world. Ancient, luminescent crystals flickered to life as they passed, casting blue-green shadows that danced across Avani's skin. The air grew cooler, heavy with latent energy that seemed to pulse in sync with their connected pulses. These chambers, Jared observed, running his free hand along the crystalline walls, they're more than just rooms, aren't they? Avani's lips curved into an appreciative smile. Perceptive. They're amplification chambers, designed to enhance our natural abilities. She stopped before an ornate doorway covered in flowing scripts. This one was my personal meditation space before everything changed. The door responded to her touch, sliding open with a soft hum. Inside, the chamber was a marvel of ancient engineering, curved walls inlaid with pulsing crystals, and, at its center, a shallow pool carved directly into the bedrock, empty now. Empty, Avani said, a note of sadness in her voice, but once, this pool contained some of the purest water in the galaxy. Jared studied her profile in the crystal light. We could change that. She turned to face him, their joined arms creating that now familiar current between them. Eager to see me in my element? Eager to see you at full strength, he countered, matching her playful tone while maintaining eye contact, though I have to admit, you're quite impressive even when depleted. Flatterer. But her eye sparkled with amusement. Though I wonder if you'll still think so when you see what's required. She led him to the pool's edge, finally releasing his arm. The loss of contact felt like a physical ache. Avani began tracing complex patterns in the air, her movements graceful and precise. The ritual requires intimacy, she explained, her voice taking on a husky quality that made Jared's pulse quicken. Physical connection is just the beginning. To fully restore my abilities, we need to create a deep bond. Define a deeper, Jared said, watching as the air around her began to shimmer with potential energy. Avani moved closer, her movements almost predatory. It means I'll see into your mind, your heart, your very essence, and you'll see into mine. She placed a hand over his heart. No secrets, no barriers, complete vulnerability. That sounds more like a marriage proposal than a scientific procedure, Jared quipped, though his voice was rougher than intended. Her laugh echoed off the chamber walls. In a way, it is. My people don't form such bonds lightly. Her fingers traced up to his jaw. Are you sure you're ready for that level of commitment, Relic Hunter? Jared caught her hand, pressing it more firmly against his face. I thought we established I'm not easily scared off. No, she murmured, her other hand coming to rest on his chest. You're not, are you? Most humans would run from what I'm offering, but you. Her eyes searched his face. You're drawn to it, to me. Maybe I just recognize something worth the risk when I see it. And what do you see, Jared Macmillan? Her face was inches from his now, her breath cool against his lips. He studied her features, the ethereal blue of her skin, the ancient wisdom in her eyes, the subtle patterns that seemed to shift beneath her surface. I see someone worth knowing, worth saving. His hand found her waist, drawing her closer. Worth everything that comes after. A tremor ran through Avani's body at his words. The energy in the chamber seemed to pulse in response, crystals glowing brighter. You're dangerous, she whispered, though she made no move to pull away. Says the ancient being about to bond with my soul, Jared said, smiling. Point taken. Her fingers traced his jawline again, leaving trails of tingling energy in their wake. Shall we begin, then? Jared nodded, suddenly unable to form words as she guided him to kneel beside the empty pool. Their knees touched, creating another point of electric contact between them. Last chance to run, Avani teased, though there was a vulnerability in her eyes that belied her light tone. I don't run, Jared said simply, especially not from the most fascinating discovery of my career. Just a discovery? She raised an eyebrow, her hands positioning themselves on either side of his face. For now, he replied with a smirk, though I have a feeling that's about to change. Avani's answering smile was radiant. Oh, Jared, she breathed, leaning in until their foreheads touched, you have no idea. The chamber's crystals pulsed brighter, responding to the building energy between them, as Avani began the ancient ritual that would bind them together. Jared realized that whatever happened next would redefine everything he thought he knew about discovery, about connection, about love. And somehow, that thought didn't scare him at all. The ritual commenced with a whisper, Avani's words in an ancient language Jared couldn't understand seeming to dance in the air between them. The chamber's crystals pulsed in rhythm with her voice, casting shifting patterns across their skin. Your heart is racing, she murmured, switching back to his language, her thumbs tracing small circles on his temples, each touch sending sparks through his nervous system. Can you blame me? Jared kept his voice steady despite the electricity coursing through him. It's not every day I kneel in an ancient chamber with a legendary being about to access my soul. Her lips curved upward. Is that what's making your pulse jump, the ritual? She leaned closer, her breath cool against his mouth. Or something else? You know exactly what you're doing, he accused softly, his hands finding her waist to steady them both as the energy in the room continued to build. Perhaps, the glow beneath her skin intensified, making her appear almost luminescent, but I enjoy watching you react. The air between them grew thick with possibility, each breath they shared seemed charged with potential energy. Jared could feel her consciousness brushing against his, like cool water lapping at the shores of his mind. "The bond is forming," Avani whispered, her fingers sliding into his hair. "I can feel your essence falling into mine." "Is that what this is?" Jared's voice was rough with emotion and mounting desire. "Because it feels like something else entirely." Her eyes met his, galaxies swirling in their depths. "It's everything," she breathed. "The bond, the attraction, the need, they're all connected. My people don't separate physical desire from spiritual connection." "Convenient," he managed, hyper-aware of how close their lips were. "Very," she agreed, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth, "especially when the attraction is this intense." The word hung between them like a challenge. Jared could feel her desire mixing with his own through their growing connection, creating a feedback loop of mounting tension. "Avani," he started, but she pressed a finger to his lips. "Shush," she murmured, "let me show you." She replaced her finger with her lips, and the world exploded into sensation. The kiss was like nothing Jared had ever experienced, cool and hot at once, sending waves of energy cascading through his body. He could feel her everywhere, in his mind, under his skin, flowing through his veins like liquid starlight. Avani made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a moan as their energies merged, her hands tightening in his hair, pulling him closer as the kiss deepened. The chamber's crystals flared brilliantly, responding to their combined power. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Jared noticed small droplets of water forming in the air around them, suspended like diamonds in the crystal light. "That's new," he managed, watching as more moisture condensed from nowhere. Avani laughed, the sound pure joy. "You're amplifying my abilities beyond what I thought possible." She kissed him again, quick and playful. "Though, I suspect the kiss helped." "Want to test that theory?" he grinned, pulling her closer, "for scientific purposes, of course." Her eye sparkled with mischief. "Of course." Jared captured her lips again, and this time the energy surge was even stronger. Water literally rained around them, filling the ancient pool with crystalline drops. Avani pulled back just enough to speak against his mouth. "I should warn you," she breathed, "this is just the beginning. The more we connect, the stronger the effects will become." "You say that like it's supposed to discourage me." His hands traced the patterns on her back, feeling the energy pulse beneath her skin. "Not discourage," she corrected, arching into his touch. "Prepare. What flows between us now is merely a trickle compared to what's coming." Jared studied her face, the flush darkening her sapphire skin, the way her eyes seemed to glow from within. "Promise?" Her answering laugh was both delighted and dangerous. "Oh my, dear relic hunter," she purred, pulling him in for another kiss, "I'm going to enjoy teaching you exactly what our bond can do." The chamber hummed with power around them, water continuing to manifest from thin air, but neither paid it much attention. They were too lost in each other, in the incredible connection forming between them, a connection that promised to change not just their lives, but an entire world. And, as far as Jared was concerned, that was worth any risk. The desert sunrise painted Ares' prime sky in shades of amber and crimson. Inside the ancient meditation chamber, Jared watched as Avani examined the pool they'd inadvertently filled the night before. Her movements were stronger now, more fluid, though he could still sense her underlying fragility through their new bond. "The water's pure," she announced, running her fingers through the crystalline liquid, purer than anything this world has seen in centuries. Jared approached, trying to ignore how his muscles ached from the previous night's energy exchange. "That's good news, right?" Avani turned to him, her expression complex. "It's extraordinary." But she reached for his hand, and the familiar surge of energy sparked between them. "You're weakened." "I'm fine," he dismissed, though the room swayed slightly when he moved too quickly. "Don't lie to me," her voice sharpened. "I can feel your fatigue through our bond." Her fingers traced the veins in his wrist, where the skin had taken on a slightly grayish tinge. "This is my fault." "Our choice," he corrected, pulling her closer, "and worth it, considering the results." She resisted slightly, though her body naturally oriented toward his. "You don't understand. This is just the beginning. To restore the entire planet. Then we'll find a way to do it safely." He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I didn't come this far to back out now." "Stubborn human," she muttered, but her lips curved upward. "Guilty." He kissed her briefly, feeling the now familiar rush of energy between them. "Now, didn't you mention something about other chambers we need to activate?" Avani's expression turned serious. "Yes, but we should wait until you've recovered more strength. Time isn't exactly on our side." He gestured to the water in the pool, which was already beginning to evaporate in the intense heat. "Your world needs this." "Not at the cost of your life," she snapped, then caught herself. "I apologize. The bond makes me protective." Jared grinned. "Protective of a mere mortal? How the mighty have fallen." Her eyes narrowed playfully. "Keep mocking me, relic hunter, and I might reconsider this whole arrangement." "No, you won't." He pulled her against him, delighting in how perfectly she fit there. "You're already addicted to me." "Presumptuous," she murmured, though she made no move to pull away. Though not entirely incorrect. Their banter was interrupted by a distant rumbling. Avani tensed, her head tilting as if listening to something beyond human perception. "What is it?" "The underground aquifers," she breathed. "They're responding to our energy. The whole network is beginning to awaken." Jared felt it too, a deep vibration running through the bedrock, like the planet itself was stirring from a long sleep. "Is that supposed to happen?" "Not this quickly." Avani's eyes widened as she processed the implications. "The bond between us, it's affecting the entire hydrogeological system. Your energy isn't just feeding me, it's feeding the planet itself." The rumbling grew stronger, and Jared steadied them both as tremors shook the chamber. "That sounds less than ideal." "It could be catastrophic." She pressed her palm to his chest, reading his energy levels, "or miraculous. The water systems are reactivating faster than I dreamed possible, but the power drain will kill me if we're not careful." Jared finished, finally acknowledging the truth they'd both been dancing around. "How long?" Avani's face crumpled slightly before she masked it. "At this rate, days, maybe less. Then we work faster." He caught her hand as she tried to pull away. "Hey, look at me. We knew this wouldn't be easy." "Easy is one thing, suicide is another." But she couldn't quite hide the hope in her eyes when another tremor shook the chamber, this one accompanied by the distant sound of rushing water. "It's working, isn't it? The planet's coming back to life," Jared pressed. "Yes," she admitted softly, "but, Jared." He silenced her with another kiss, this one deeper, pouring all his conviction into it. When they parted, her eyes were glowing with barely contained power. "You're impossible," she whispered. "Part of my charm." He straightened, fighting off another wave of dizziness. "Now, about those other chambers." Avani studied him for a long moment, conflict clear on her face. Finally, she nodded. "The primary filtration hub is 2 levels down. It's the heart of the entire system." Her hand tightened on his, "But you have to promise me something. If I tell you to stop, you stop. No arguments, no heroics." Her eyes blazed. "I won't watch you die for my world." Jared traced the patterns on her skin that had begun to glow more brightly since their bonding. "Counter-proposal, we find a way to make this work without either of us dying. I'm rather attached to seeing how this plays out." A small smile broke through her concern. "Attached, are you?" "Increasingly." He pulled her closer, ignoring the way the room spun slightly. "In fact, I'd say you're the most valuable discovery I've ever made." "Flattery will not distract me from monitoring your vitals," she warned, though her hand slid up his chest of their own accord. "No," he grinned. "What about this?" He kissed her again, and the chamber's crystals flared in response to their combined energy. When they parted, Avani looked both exasperated and amused. "You're going to be trouble, aren't you?" "Sweetheart, Jared said, enjoying how the unfamiliar term of endearment made her eyes widen. I'm already trouble. Now, shall we go save your world? She shook her head, but took his hand. Together, she agreed, leading him toward the chamber's exit. Though I reserve the right to knock you unconscious and drag you to safety if necessary. Kinky, he chuckled. Her laugh echoed through the ancient halls as they descended deeper into the complex, neither of them fully acknowledging the fear that lurked beneath their playful exchanges. The planet trembled around them, awakening from its long drought, while Jared's strength continued to slowly ebb away. It was a race against time, and they both knew it. But with each step, each touch, each surge of power between them, the bond grew stronger, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to save them both. The deeper chambers of the ancient complex hummed with renewed energy. Jared and Avani found themselves in what appeared to be private quarters, the walls adorned with softly glowing crystals that responded to their presence. The bond between them pulsed stronger here, more intimate. These were my personal chambers, Avani explained, her voice soft with memory. The crystals, they remember me, remember us now. Jared watched how the light played across her sapphire skin, highlighting the intricate patterns that seemed to flow beneath her surface. Their connection let him feel her mounting desire, mirroring his own. The energy here, he observed, stepping closer to her, it's different, more concentrated. She agreed, turning to face him. These rooms were designed for deep connection, the restoration of life force, the strengthening of bonds. Her eyes met his, dark with meaning. Is that what we're calling it? His hands found her waist, drawing her closer. The familiar surge of energy between them felt stronger here, more focused. Avani's laugh was low and musical. Among other things. Her fingers traced the patterns of his faded tattoo on his skin. You need restoration, Jared. The energy transfer is draining you too quickly. I'm fine, he started, but she pressed a finger to his lips. No more deflection. Her touch sent sparks through his system. There are other ways to share energy, more complete ways. Her eyes held his, both invitation and challenge. If you're willing. Jared caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. I think you know the answer to that. The air between them grew heavy with possibility. Avani's free hand slid up his chest, coming to rest over his heart. This will change everything, she warned, though she was already leaning into him. The bond will become permanent. Good, he said simply, and kissed her. The energy surge was immediate and overwhelming. Unlike their previous exchanges, this felt like diving into pure light. Jared could feel Avani's essence merging with his own, their boundaries blurring until he wasn't sure where he ended and she began. The chamber's crystals flared brilliantly, responding to their combined power. Water began to manifest around them, not in droplets but in flowing streams that defied gravity. Jared! Avani gasped against his mouth. Are you sure? In answer, he pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. The world dissolved into sensation and light, their bond singing between them as they finally gave into what had been building since that first touch in the desert. Later, much later, they lay tangled together on the chamber's ancient bed, watching as water continued to flow in impossible patterns around them. Avani traced the glowing marks on Jared's skin where their energy had merged. Your vitality is stronger now, she observed, a note of relief in her voice. The exchange was more balanced this time. Jared caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her wrist. Is that your scientific assessment? She smiled, the expression softer than he'd ever seen it. Would you prefer a more detailed analysis? I think I would, he murmured, pulling her closer. In fact, I think this might require thorough research. Avani's laugh turned into a gasp as he demonstrated exactly what kind of research he had in mind. The chamber's crystals pulsed in harmony with their renewed connection, and, somewhere deep beneath them, the planet's ancient waters continued to rise. Their bond had found its true form, and neither of them would ever be the same. The morning light filtered through the crystal chambers, finding Jared and Avani entwined in each other's arms. The bond between them hummed with newfound strength, but Jared could feel an underlying tension in Avani's thoughts. You're worried, he murmured, tracing the glowing patterns on her skin. She turned to face him, her expression troubled. The planet's core systems are responding too quickly. The energy drain. Her fingers traced the grey line spreading across his chest. It's killing you faster than before. Worth it, Jared said, though he couldn't hide the weakness in his voice. Look what we've accomplished. Through their bond, they could both feel the transformation happening above. Water was returning to Ares Prime, ancient aquifers awakening, the first hints of life stirring in soil that had been dead for centuries. Not at the cost of your life. Avani sat up, her eyes blazing. There must be another way. Jared followed, fighting the dizziness that threatened to overwhelm him. Maybe there isn't. Maybe this is exactly how it's supposed to happen. No. She grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her gaze. I won't accept that, not after. She faltered, emotions too complex for words flowing through their connection. After falling in love, he completed her thought, feeling her shock at hearing it spoken aloud. Yes, she whispered, pressing her forehead to his, though I didn't expect it to happen quite like this. What, you didn't plan on falling for a mere mortal? His attempt at humor was undermined by a sudden coughing fit. Avani steadied him, her power flowing into him instinctively. Stop pushing yourself, Jared. He caught his breath, gripping her hands. We're too close. The whole system is about to tip. It needs one final push. It will kill you. Then we better figure out how to stop that from happening. He managed a weak smile, because I have plans for us that extend well beyond today. Avani's expression softened, even as worry creased her brow. Do you, now? Oh yes, he pulled her closer, ignoring the way the room spun. There are at least a dozen other dead worlds out there waiting to be restored. We could make quite a team. You're impossible, she murmured, but he felt her resolve weakening. Part of my charm. He kissed her softly, feeling the familiar surge of energy between them. Now, help me up. We have a planet to save. The journey to the central chamber was slow, Jared's strength fading with each step. Avani supported him, her own power flowing constantly into him, now trying to stabilize his failing systems. The chamber itself was massive, a cathedral-like space filled with ancient machinery and flowing water channels. At its center stood a crystalline structure that pulsed with potential energy, the heart of everything, Avani explained. From here, we can trigger a complete reactivation of the planet's water systems, but the energy required will probably kill me, Jared finished, unless we find another way. She turned to him, desperation clear in her eyes. There has to be another way. The ancient text spoke of balanced exchanges, of sustainable bonds. We're missing something. Jared studied the crystal heart, feeling its pull through their connection. What if we're thinking about this wrong? It's not about giving or taking energy, it's about creating something new. Avani's eyes widened as she caught his meaning through their bond. A permanent fusion of our energies, like what happened last night, but on a planetary scale? Exactly. He stepped toward the crystal, pulling her with him. Not sacrifice, transformation. It's never been done before, a human and a hydro master. We've done a lot of things that have never been done before, he grinned at her, though the effort cost him. What's one more? Avani studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Together, then. They approached the crystal heart, their joined hands pressed against its surface. The moment they made contact, energy surged through them both, more powerful than anything they'd experienced before. Jared felt himself beginning to fade, his life force draining into the crystal, but this time was different. Instead of simply taking his energy, the crystal seemed to be transforming it, merging it with Avani's essence to create something entirely new. Hold on, Jared. Avani gasped, her grip on his hand tightening. Stay with me. He tried to respond, but the world was dissolving into pure light. Through their bond, he could feel the planet awakening, water rushing through ancient channels, life stirring in long-dead soil. And, at the center of it all, their combined energy, neither human nor hydro master, but something wonderfully, impossibly new. Just as darkness began to claim him, Jared felt a shift in the energy flow. Instead of draining away, it began to cycle back through him, changed but familiar. Avani's triumphant cry echoed through his consciousness. It's working! The cycle is stabilizing. Slowly, the light faded enough for Jared to see again. The chamber was filled with flowing water, plants already beginning to sprout from cracks in the ancient floor. And Avani! Avani was radiant, her skin glowing with newfound power. We did it, he managed, his strength already beginning to return. The planet is reborn, she finished, pulling him into a fierce kiss. And you're still here. Told you I had plans. He held her close, marveling at the transformation around them. Though I suppose I should contact my ship eventually. They're probably wondering where I've been. Avani tensed slightly. You have to go back. For a while, he agreed, but our bond. He touched the place over his heart where their energies had merged. It's permanent now. Distance won't change that. Promise? I promise. He kissed her again, feeling their combined power surge between them. Besides, someone has to tell the galaxy that the Hydro Masters have returned, and that they're even more remarkable than the legend suggested. Avani laughed, the sound pure joy. Go, then. Do what you must, but come back to me. Wild horses couldn't stop me. At her confused look, he grinned. Earth expression. I'll explain when I return. I'll hold you to that. She stepped back, though their hands remained linked. And, Jared, thank you, for everything. Thank me when I get back, he said with a wink. We have a lot more worlds to save. The goodbye was bittersweet but filled with promise. As Jared's ship lifted off from the newly transformed surface,